Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the events of the day, the law, and the Constitution to you with full analysis each month. Myself, James Barrett, with Mark Malachowski. We're here tonight to cover some exciting subjects. What do we have tonight, Mark?
Well, first of all, we're going to talk about Star Trek Starlet gotten a little tangle with her son over $10 million, and that's been going on for about 10 years. Then we've got the Nutty Professor, Jerry Lewis, had a little falling out with his sons, and they're pretty upset because he gave his fortune to his second wife and adopted daughter. And lastly, we have SpyGate, which hardly anyone can figure out.
Well, wait a minute, but there's no, just for as an aside, but there's no deadbeat children in SpyGate, are there?
There could be. I mean, it's spy versus spy. It's pretty complicated. Everybody's taking bribes from everybody.
Trying to get a few bucks. Okay, what's our first subject, Mark?
Okay, so we got Star Trek Starlet, okay, and that's Nichelle Nichols. Now, that was Lieutenant
Uhura.
Uhura, and so she was very famous, very popular, the beauty of Star Trek.
She was the beauty on the bridge.
And for the last 10 years, she's been having a fight with her son, big feud, and her son Kyle doesn't have any money, wants to have her committed to an old folks home, says she's off her rocker, does not have capability.
Wait a minute. This sounds like somebody that's an underachiever who wants a free ride from his mother's hard work. Well, is that where we're going with this one, Mark?
Her agent, that's going to be Nichelle Nichols, or the lieutenant's agent said, look, she made me promise that I wasn't going to send her old folks home and she could stay in her house till she dies, which is $10 million house, right?
Of course.
Son wants to boot mom into an old folks home and sell the house and get the $10 million as soon as possible. And this feud's been going on for 10 years.
Yeah, but I don't understand how Nichelle Nichols has been working on TV and in movies.
And she just did
and she's
movies.
Still performing.
Yeah, she just
did under what condition does the son believe that she can no longer live in the house on her own when she can afford to have all the workers, all the helpers, everything she wants anyway? I don't understand.
Well, not only that, she's still making movies.
I know.
And he's claiming she doesn't have mental capabilities.
Well, I got to tell you, she remembers lines.
You know,
if you can remember lines, you got to have some mental capabilities.
But you got to understand, he's broke. He needs money. And,
yeah, that's where you start.
And he never made any promises to his mom, apparently, that she could stay in the house. And it's a $10 million house, and he wants it. Now, the agent...
Is that all she has, is a house? I guarantee she has more than the house.
That is...
Unless he's looted it.
Well, there's $10 million there, so I think that's pretty good. And, you know, I don't know how successful these movies she's made recently have been, but she is still working.
She gets paid.
Well, she's also working, too, so it shows that she's capable of doing things.
Right.
And she's able to get out of the house. And so it's kind of a fight between... the lieutenant's agent, Uhura's agent, and the son.
Yeah, my question, though, is have they gone legal on this, like elder abuse, or has there been any litigation where there's a determination of her competency, or does she need caregivers? There seems to be some...
Her son Kyle's trying to get a conservatorship, I think, and get her committed, and he's claiming, you know, the agent's up to something, and, you know, influencing or undue influence of the agent. And so the agent's claiming, no, I'm doing what she wants, and I've represented her for many years, and I promised that she's going to be able to live her life out, live in her home. And this is a, this is a common issue for a lot of older people. They tend to want to stay in their home as long as they can.
Right.
And the reason is they have all their memories there. They've got the place memorized. They know how many steps it is over here, how many steps over there. They feel comfortable there. Maybe they've got neighbors still, and maybe they've outlived them, but people want to stay in their home quite a bit. And then getting moved into an old folks' home, even though in a way it's more practical, because you have elevators and you have...
Well, you also have caregivers that are on the spot.
Well, you have one caregiver that can take care of several people at a time, so it's a little more economical. But sometimes old folks, when they go to the old folks' home, don't last that long.
Yeah, out of personal experience, Mark, I'll tell you that my mother would prefer to die in her home. She does
Right.
not want to go anywhere. And what I found in my age category, there's a lot of parents, mostly mothers. The fathers usually die first for
Right.
whatever reason. But the mothers want to stay in their homes because of everything you just said, plus they feel as though they'll be abandoned if they go to an old folks home, if they go to an assisted care facility. There's a lot of abandonment they feel automatically is going to happen because there'll be less opportunity to interact with your siblings or your children or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of comfort when you stay in your own home. That means there's everything, like you said, memories, the life, the family, the photo albums and things like that. So for this son, Kyle Nichols, to want to send his mother, Nichelle Nichols, to an old folks home, this woman has a million memories. And it doesn't make any sense, but it just demonstrates the deadbeat kids of Hollywood stars. I just don't know why that there's so many kids in that class of actors and actresses that just don't launch. And it's a very sad effect.
Well, that happens a lot of times when children are expecting money. They tend to be a little less motivated. But also, I think a big issue is mental capacity and decision-making capacity. And, I mean, if you look at what you need to make a will, you got to know who your family is, who your children are, who your siblings are, who your husband or wife is. You got to know what you own, right? And so those are the things you have to understand. And so the capacity to make a will is not that huge. You don't necessarily have to do the square root of 144. You don't have to necessarily do all these mental quizzes. You just have to know the extent of your wealth, what it is, and who your family is and who your beneficiaries are.
Well, in our job, Mark, that I have been tasked when somebody comes to me and they say my dad wants to sign the will,
right,
and it changes everything. I'm tasked with understanding, does that person know,
right,
is there a competency level there?
Right.
If I walk in and there's somebody using their hand to guide his hand, that's not exactly, as an officer of the court, something I want to be involved with. But if I walk in and I say, what day of the week is it? He says, Tuesday. And I go, what are we doing here today? Oh, I'm signing my addendum to the trust. And I know what I'm doing. And do you know what month it is? And things like that. That's a competency issue that you or I, because we deal with people on a legal basis and in an analytical basis and in a counseling basis, you recognize that very quickly. So it's interesting that the son would even keep portraying his mother as anything less than competent when she's obviously walking on to TV sets and movie sets and able to memorize lines. I don't think she just stands in the movie. I know that she's, participating with lines in the movie. So I am concerned that there's nobody overseeing what's going on here.
Well, I think what happens is, like, you have a will, which I said you have to know the extent of your holdings. You got to
Exactly.
know who your possible beneficiaries are. You've got to know that you're signing a will. That's relatively simple rules there. If you're looking at a trust, that's more complex because trusts are more customized. They're more like contracts, and you have to have a little more understanding of what is the significance or the consequences of this trust, because it's not just a simple will, I'm going to give this person, that person. So they're a little more complex, so you have to have a slightly level of cognitive understanding.
What you and I normally see, though, with a lot of trusts is when people want to do an addendum.
Right.
They want to plug in, well, I'm going to change section 4C that says this and that.
Right, right.
Instead, I want to make 4C say one thing or another. But I do understand we're kind of out of time on this one subject. But the last thing I wanted to say to the viewers is, Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner were the first interracial kiss on television in Star Trek, and it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. And on that note, Mark, what's our second subject?
Well, the next one is the Nutty Professor.
The Nutty Professor.
Jerry Lewis did a lot of comedy, but I think his big hit was the Nutty Professor. And he had some sons, but he didn't leave them a dime. They got nothing.
Well, this kind of builds on our last issue when we talk about sons that failed the launch when their parents are so wealthy. And by the way, Jerry Lewis was extremely wealthy because he had numerous careers as a vaudevillian, and then Martin and Lewis with Dean Martin, of course, a whole series of movies and comedy routines and endless performances. And then, of course, he was on his own, and he did his own movies. And then on top of that, he had the telethon and his muscular dystrophy telethon that he organized. He was actually one of the first innovators with the TV telethon, where he raised millions and millions of dollars. But he was probably one of those parents with all that money that spoiled the heck out of his kids. And what do they do next? Dad, give me $1. It's failed to launch. So what happened?
Well, you know, this is fairly common, and what happens a lot of times if I'm working with children of people, and you know, sometimes it's even the only son or the only daughter, right? So that how could you miss? You know, I mean, why wouldn't you get everything in that case? But then there's some kind of altercation, and I start to interview him, and I'm like, well, when's the last time you sent Dad a Christmas card or a birthday card? Well, never. You know, when's the last time you sent him a Father's Day card? Well, never.
Well, never.
When's the last time you bought him some groceries? You know, never. And I'm like, you know, what am I going to type up in your declaration? You know, it's very tough, you know. And
I was a loving son.
Yeah, but I mean, and then I've also talked to the parents on the other side. I'm saying, well, is there anything your son could do to, you know, what's the word for it? To
show his love,
or well, no, to redeem himself.
Redeem himself.
If there's anything he can do to redeem himself, and he goes, well, you know, he was a rotten kid. He's been a rotten adult. You know, I don't think there's anything that ever happened. So,
oh my God.
But I mean, I think a lot of it is that, of course, everybody kind of goes through this rebellious stage when they're a teenager in their 20s, and then some people get over them, they reunite. Some people go through their whole lives. I think what I see in most of these situations, it's kind of the job of the children to
reach out
and do the what do they call it? The olive branch.
Yeah, olive branch.
Because the parents are kind of like, why should I? You know, I gave them everything.
I gave them everything.
And why should I do the olive branch? So I think, you know, a lot of times you have both sides of the equation kind of waiting for someone to do something. I think if the children don't do it, it maybe doesn't happen. But that's just been, you know, my experience in working with that.
What's sad about all of this is that Jerry Lewis, when he had his children, he didn't go, I'm going to cut him out of the will when they were born.
No.
He's holding his little sons and one at a time, whatever, and he's looking at him going, I love you, it's the heart from my heart. But through the growth period of that son or daughter, something's continued to go on that breaks them apart.
Well, yeah, apparently, you know, I didn't do a deep investigation, but, you know, reports were that the sons weren't very nice to Jerry. And then he married a second wife, and he adopted a daughter, him and his second wife adopted a daughter, and he left everything to the new wife and the new daughter.
Well, they were, okay, so the daughter must have been an adult by the time he passed.
Yeah, I don't know the ages, but I'm just saying he left everything to that side of the family, and the other side, side got nothing.
Okay, so let's step on to the next thing. Are the sons trying to say that there was something wrong with the will, where the money shouldn't have been left to the second wife and the daughter, or are they saying that he was mentally incapacitated and didn't have the ability to make that decision to leave the money? What is the controversy that gives them the in to be able to reach out and try and gain some of that fortune back? Because he was very wealthy, bought a lot of real estate. Once again, that age group of actors bought a lot of real estate in Hollywood, all over LA. I'm sure that his fortune was pretty robust. So what did they use as an in?
So what makes you think that the Sons would want to attack the will? Wherever would you get that idea?
Where did I get that
Where
idea?
did you get that idea?
I can tell you. Well, I only own San Fernando Valley.
Okay, so the signature on the,
the
will leaving Jerry's out of the money has been disputed.
Oh,
so they're saying that
signature.
So they went after the signature.
Did they bring in a forensic handwriting expert?
I don't know how this all ended up yet, but there was a dispute over that. My understanding at this point, because it wasn't overturned, that maybe that attack wasn't successful.
Well,
but
if it wasn't overturned.
They did go after the signature. They said the signature that changed everything going to us to everything going to the next wife and the new daughter, that was a bad signature.
But wait a minute, can I ask a question? Was that signature on like the day before he died?
I don't
Or
know.
was that much before he died?
I think it was before he died.
Yeah, it was much before he died.
I think the change became before, but they did go after. They didn't give up without a fight.
Well,
but they were left without a dime.
Well, what's interesting is, you know how they have the clause in the wills and oftentimes in trusts. If you contest any part of this, you can never inherit any of it, right?
Well, see, but if you're getting nothing,
you're going to contest as
you
much
might as well
as
contest.
you can.
Well, actually, and I was just looking at this. This is kind of interesting because it used to be when you contested a will, it was fairly straightforward. You would go to a judge and you go, I have reasonable cause to believe that we should contest this.
Yeah.
This change or whatever it is, this clause, and then the judge would give a
tentative ruling,
a ruling on like whether whether you should go ahead and do this, whether you can. And then what they did, they said, well, we're going to simplify things. So they took something that used to be a page, they made it 35 pages, and now they said the judge is not going to rule on this. You just have to roll the dice on it, right? And so if you look at different levels of certainty, you have, like, say you've got reasonable suspicion, which is maybe 10%, right? And then you've got probable cause, which might be 20%, right? Then you got more likely than not, right? Which is, preponderance of the evidence, maybe 51%. Then you get up to a certainty, you get up to certainty where you're getting into like 70% or something like that. And then
beyond a reasonable doubt,
which is a big argument. I've had some argument.
What is beyond a reasonable doubt?
I've had some arguments with judges on. I would say 99%. Some judges would say it's 94%, but 98% would be beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, where the new law falls, it's not really clear. It's saying what a reasonable person would think has a likelihood. And so, well, is a reasonable likelihood, is that between probable cause and more likely than not? Is it a reasonable certainty? So basically, it's gotten a little more complex, but what they did is you can't get a ruling from a judge that's going to tell you, if you go after this contest, you lose all.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, that's actually another subject. I'd like us to move into our third subject for tonight because I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to actually look at this a little more because it's in the deadbeat offspring of rich Hollywood stars is a subject we could cover a whole half an hour on. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay.
What do we got?
Well, the next one is SpyGate. Okay.
SpyGate. Sounds like a TV show.
And it is kind of like spy versus spy. And this all has to do.
The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
This all has to do with Mueller and the Russians and everything like this. And so Mueller pretty much. I've worked on in a murder case. I worked on an indictment, on a grand jury indictment. This is a special prosecutor, but I haven't really seen that much evidence, but I guess maybe some will show up. I mean, when I went to the AUSA in San Jose, I put my evidence on the table. Mueller's hasn't really put his evidence on the table for yet in a year. I did mine in 10 minutes.
That's longer than a year.
But anyway, but some evidence might pop up. Or or might be manufactured or something.
Mark, is actually, this is the old story that I'm going to keep prosecuting you until I do find something.
Well, it's kind of like the morale in the British Navy. The floggings will continue until morale improves. Anyway.
Is that the law of the sea?
that's and you get a bottle of rum. Okay, okay, so Shifty Shyster Mueller slammed by... Shifty Shyster Mueller slammed by judge for trying to hide evidence. So the judge slammed Mueller for what the other attorneys call pettifoggery.
Pettifoggery. That sounds like an old British C word.
Well, that's actually kibitzing over nitpicky stuff, right? And
Boy, you're loaded tonight on those, aren't you?
So what happened was, well, the other definition is being a shyster. So, you know, but the point is, Mueller claimed he didn't properly. Okay, so Mueller went after Concord Management and Consulting, which is somehow connected with the Russian firm. And he says, you guys did espionage. You took over Facebook and you brainwashed all these Americans. And Hillary would have won. Hillary would have won if you didn't brainwash all these stupid Trumpsters who basically don't have capacity, right?
They have no capacity.
This is going back to the first thing, right, we talked about. So the Trumpsters lack capacity to make their own decisions. They were brainwashed by
the Russians.
By the internet.
Oh, boy.
And Concord Management and Consultant committed the espionage on top of the Russians by brainwashing 65 million Americans to vote for Trump.
Oh, my God. They're efficient. They're efficient. Now, can I brainwash them to send me 65 million Americans to send me a $10 bill?
And so
I'd be really happy about that.
So what happened is, you know, Mueller just figured he'd default on these things. The Russians wouldn't show up. But these guys show up. So here, you know, they have a law firm shows up and says, you know, we're here and we want our discovery. Here's an arraignment. We want discovery. And Mueller goes, discovery, evidence?
I don't have any evidence.
Like,
what evidence?
I can't give you any evidence. So he filed a brief saying that, oh, if I gave you the evidence, you know, the whole world would collapse. And
oh, my God. Top secret.
You know, well, because you got to understand, Mueller's the one who...
Under investigation.
No, but Mueller's the one who came up with the secret dossier.
The secret dossier.
That proved that Iraq was about to do a nuclear destruction of all of Europe. And he proved that in his dossier. Of course, we never got to see the dossier, right? And so then he got this other dossier where they did the FISA warrants, you know, and everyone's got. So he's always got these secret dossiers you can never look at because it's too top secret.
It might reveal, what is it, names and places.
Oh, yeah, because he goes, well, it's an ongoing investigation.
It's an ongoing investigation.
So these guys would run for it.
Oh, yeah,
God. Right. And so basically, you know, we did the Iraq war, which is 50,000 casualties, $8 trillion, based on Mueller's secret dossier.
I say
and now,
time for a Broadway show.
And now,
I've got that dossier.
And so we've got to get rid of these 65 million votes because
where are they going to go?
Secret dossier.
Because?
No, because they were brainwashed by the Russians. And so the Russians show up, and the attorneys to the Russians, and they go, we want to see the discovery. Because when you go to arraignment at a criminal case, what happens?
You got to get your discovery.
They're supposed to hand you the
they hand you the discovery.
Okay?
And so if I went into a federal court and I got Mueller on one side saying, oh, I'm going to indict you because you destroyed the election and it's the end of the world and all that. And then I go, where's the evidence? And he goes, what evidence?
He's supposed to have it with
him.
It's
you
supposed to be in his briefcase.
That's a requirement.
And so what Mueller says is like, he files his brief and it's like, oh, I can't give you the discovery because it's a secret dossier.
Secret dossier.
Just like, oh my gosh, this secret Iraq.
Oh, it's so secret.
Like the weapons of mass destruction.
Oh my God, the weapons of mass destruction.
In Iraq, they were so secret, they never found them.
They never found them. They were secretly not there.
And just like the secret dossier
oh my God.
from the British spy, that none of that's still done.
Oh, the British spy.
Yeah, that's
but we can't let him know.
So anyway, there's all this secret stuff. So Mueller's always got secret evidence. And the judge just said...
Let me throw in Adam Schiff. And we know everything I've seen. There's nothing to say. But Adam Schiff says, it's all there. It's all there. It's all there. Okay, go on with Mueller and his secret dossier.
So anyway, it's all secret. And so he tells the judge, well, first of all, these guys, I didn't properly serve them. I messed up the summons.
You mean Mueller didn't serve him properly?
Yeah, I said so.
But wait a minute, they're in court.
But then the guy goes, look, I voluntarily appeared through counsel as provided for in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure and further intend to enter a plea of not guilty. Concord has not sought a limited appearance, nor has it moved to quash the summons. As such, the briefing says I didn't serve them right. I made a goof up, so none of this counts. I can't give them any evidence. And then they're also saying, oh, my evidence is so secret, it's another secret dossier.
Oh, it's another secret dossier.
He goes,
secret evidence.
And they said, as such, the briefing sought by the special counsel, that's Mueller, motion is pedophagy.
Well, wait a minute. Let me go back to basic criminal law 101. When either Mark or Jim walk into court.
When has Mueller ever had anything to do with the law?
He nothing to do with the law. But when Mark or Jim walk in and the district attorney says, okay, your client's being charged with 27 counts of felony fraud, and we have them hung from the yardarm.
Yeah, right.
And the first thing they do is they hand you the big briefing.
Well, first of all,
Mueller's saying You disrupted the election. But I don't have any evidence.
Well, the thing about it is, as soon as you say, "Yeah, I'm here.
I'm here. Where's my discovery?
Is you say I'm not making a special appearance.
No.
I'm doing a
I'm
general
fully
appearance.
here.
I'm doing a general appearance. As soon as you have someone walk in and say, I'm general appearance, they're supposed to hide their
If they don't hand you that, the judge can go, what do you got there, buddy?
What's going on?
It's like case dismissed.
And so anyway, so the judge just slams Mueller for pedophagy, which means basically being,
At least it's better than pedophilia.
being a shyster and just being a disreputable, shyster. And so this is actually pretty funny. And so I really like these two guys, Eric Dubler and Kate Cyclay of the Reed Smith firm. They filed the appearance in court on behalf of Concurrent Management, and they said, hey, look.
We're here.
We're here. We're here to defend. We're going to plead not guilty. And, Mueller said, oh, I'm not going to disclose any discovery. And the judge said, and he wants a continuance. Of course, he wants to continue the trial to after the election.
Of course, after the election.
No,
he wants to drag it on out. Drag it on out. This is called killing the time.
Well, not only that, it's called churning the fire.
Churning.
He's like,
they won't win. They won't win. They won't win. I know.
He built $17 million, right, so
far. I know, it's great.
And
what a party over there.
And he's come
over
up,
there at special counsel.
And he's come up with a couple parking tickets.
I know he's got
Which is like a parking ticket or two. And like, oh, well, you never said you wouldn't say, you didn't say when we taped you 8 years ago. And the thing is, the people he tripped up, right, like Flynn, when they were talking for him, they thought it was just a chat with the FBI that was working for him, right?
Yeah.
They didn't know they were under investigation.
They didn't know they were under investigation.
And they've been spying on him from 10, 20 years ago, and they had tapes from 10, 20 years ago. It was like, well, did you ever tell your wife?
Did you ever tell your wife you went out to have a drink when in fact you went out to have some
so that's what they nailed him
whoopee time.
Well, they said, well, I went golfing instead of remembering the anniversary. That's what they nailed him on. These are parking tickets. I mean, this is worth, the work that Mueller's done is worth about minus a few $1 million, and he's charging $7 million. But I don't think he's done like $20 worth of work this whole time.
Well, I got to tell you, Mark, I think what we're going to have to do is watch the Mueller indictment and it's been another wonderful evening here at Law Talk. I got to tell you, as we go on...
Pedophagy.
But like I said, it's better than pedophilia.
Okay, yeah, and so as far as spies, we don't know who they put in there. McMaster, Stefan Halper, all these guys.
This Halper guy is the guy that vanished.
Oh, well, they've all taken so many bribes. I mean, you look at these people like the $9 trillion we were talking about that the Federal Reserve stole.
By the way, you know what? If I misplaced $5,
no, this is $9 trillion.
They'd be after me.
Kushner got $1.4 billion. Who knows how many tens of millions the Saudis paid Hillary and paid Halper. So I mean, there's so many people that took so many bribes. And there's so many people who would do anything for money that I would imagine there might have been a dozen spies working for the Saudi Arabia, probably the Israelis for sure.
Oh, definitely.
You got the Israelis in there, you got Saudi Arabians, maybe Qatar. So I would say those are the main people that were running spies. And then they probably sold some of that information to Mueller or gave him some special deals.
Yeah, they got to give him a special deal.